Ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed how the world keeps offering you reflections of yourself? Not the self you pretend to be, not the one you present on good days, but the one you carry silently, the one you are when no one is watching. You see, most people are chasing a life, a better life, a richer one, a more peaceful one. They run after success, after love, after meaning, as if these things are hiding somewhere far away, needing to be hunted. But what if nothing is hiding? What if the life you want isn't waiting for you at the top of some mountain or in someone else's arms, but is waiting within you to awaken? Because here's the truth. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are, and that should shake you to your core. That should stop you. That should wake you up, because it means every time you chase something without growing yourself first, you're setting yourself up for loss. It will slip through your fingers like sand, and you'll wonder why. But when you grow, when you turn inward and water the roots of your being, something miraculous happens. The life that once eluded you begins to appear, not because you forced it, but because you became it. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a new plan. You need presence. You need honesty. You need the courage to face the version of yourself that you've buried under expectations. You think growth is about becoming someone else. It's not. It's about returning to who you were before the world convinced you otherwise. Drop the noise. Drop the striving. Drop the fantasy of someday. Because everything you're running after is a reflection of your current state. You want peace, then become peaceful. You want love, then live as love. You want abundance, then cultivate the mindset of someone who already has it. Nothing will shift until you shift. Stop trying to change the world while avoiding yourself. Sit with your pain, sit with your boredom, sit with your discomfort, and listen, because buried in that silence is the map back to your power. The universe is not responding to your desperation, it's responding to your vibration, and that vibration is set by how deeply you are rooted in your own truth. When you stop pretending, when you stop performing, when you stop negotiating with your worth, life has no choice but to meet you differently. This is not philosophy, this is reality. No one is coming to rescue you, but something far greater is waiting to rise within you, not a version of you that hustles and pleases, but one that simply is. Grow yourself first, quietly, relentlessly, authentically, and then watch what happens. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. This idea may sound simple, almost poetic, but beneath it lies one of the deepest truths about existence. Most people believe that if they just want something hard enough, success, love, peace, wealth, it will eventually come to them. They visualize, they affirm, they chase endlessly, and yet somehow, life doesn't always seem to cooperate. The reason is not a lack of effort, or even lack of clarity, but a misunderstanding of how reality actually works. Wanting something does not magnetize it to you. In fact, wanting often implies lack. When you want from a place of desperation, from a place of emptiness or neediness, you are energetically declaring that you do not have the very thing you seek. And what does life reflect back? More lack, more distance, more striving. Now contrast that with being. When you are something, when you embody confidence, when you live as peace, when you express gratitude, not as a performance, but as a natural state of existence, life bends. The environment starts to mirror that essence. People treat you differently. Opportunities respond. Even random events begin to synchronize with your inner rhythm. This is because the world outside you is not separate from you. It's a mirror, a field of reflection. What you carry inside becomes the filter through which you perceive and influence reality. If your inner world is scattered, fearful, or resentful, no amount of outer rearranging will lead to lasting satisfaction. You will always attract experiences that echo your internal chaos. Take relationships, for example. Someone may yearn for deep, respectful, and loving connections, but if they harbor unhealed wounds, deep insecurities, or fears of abandonment, they will unconsciously attract partners or situations that reinforce those internal states. They'll experience betrayal, neglect, or emotional volatility, not because they deserve it, but because their energy is still vibrating at that frequency. This is not punishment, it's a compassionate feedback system. Life is always showing you what you still carry. To attract what you truly desire, you must become an energetic match for it. That doesn't mean faking it. It means becoming deeply honest with yourself. Who are you when no one is looking? What emotions do you entertain the most? What beliefs about yourself and the world do you subconsciously operate from? If you want abundance, but carry the belief that the world is scarce and success is only for the lucky or ruthless, then life will validate that belief. If you want love but walk around believing you are unworthy or too broken, you'll encounter people who reinforce that story until you break it from within. You must shift from wanting to embodying. This shift requires self-awareness. It requires stillness. It requires looking at yourself with ruthless honesty, not judgmentally, but curiously. What am I carrying that no longer serves me? What patterns have I outgrown yet still act upon? Where am I saying one thing and living another? This is where real growth begins. It begins not in chasing goals, but in aligning your identity with the reality you seek. And identity is not a costume, it is a frequency, a pattern of thought, emotion, and behavior that you return to moment by moment. You don't become confident by waiting until you feel confident. You become confident by showing up again and again in the face of fear. You don't become peaceful by waiting for life to slow down. You become peaceful by becoming the calm in the chaos. Ask yourself not what do I want, but who must I become to attract what I want. This shift alone will change the trajectory of your life, because suddenly you are not a beggar waiting for life to give you what you desire. You are a conscious participant, a deliberate creator, shaping the world around you by shaping the world within. You realize that you don't have to control outcomes, manipulate people, or force results. You simply need to tend to yourself, to cultivate the garden of your mind, to clean the emotional house, to clear the mental clutter, to deepen your connection with your values and inner truth. This doesn't happen overnight, it's not instant, and it's not always pretty, but every time you choose authenticity over performance, inner work over external chasing, and presence over distraction, you begin to shift your vibration, and as your vibration shifts, so does your life. The friendships you attract feel more nourishing, the work you do feels more aligned, the love you experience feels more real. Not because the world changed, but because you did. The law is simple. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Become the kind of person who naturally lives the life you dream of, and let life reflect it back to you in ways you could never have imagined. Growth is not about adding more, it's about shedding illusions. We live in a world that constantly whispers, you need more. More skills, more achievements, more validation, more possessions, more followers, more approval. It's as if we are taught from the beginning that we are inherently lacking, and the only way to become somebody is to layer ourselves with endless accomplishments, identities, and titles. But true growth doesn't work that way. In fact, the more we add, the more we often stray from ourselves, because growth is not accumulation, it's revelation. It's not a race to become someone new, but a quiet return to the truth of who you already are beneath the noise. When a sculptor works on a block of marble, they don't add clay to make a masterpiece. They remove everything that doesn't belong. Chip by chip, they unveil the form that already exists within the stone. The same is true for you. The self you are seeking to become already exists within you, but it is buried under conditioning, expectations, societal roles, and limiting beliefs. And the process of personal evolution is not about stacking more layers. It's about gently, courageously peeling them away. From the moment we are born, we begin absorbing stories. Stories about who we are, what we should want, how we should behave, and what success looks like. These stories are handed down by parents, teachers, media, religion, culture, and before we know it, we've built a self that's not ours, a patchwork identity stitched from 1,000 opinions. We chase goals, not because they're aligned with our soul, but because we've been told they'll make us worthy. We enter relationships, not because they feel true, but because they check the right boxes. We follow paths not because they resonate, but because we're afraid of being lost. And then one day, despite all the adding, we feel empty. This is the wake-up call. The moment of inner dissonance, where something deep within us whispers, this isn't it. That's where real growth begins. Not from ambition, but from disillusionment. Not from desire, but from awareness. You start to question. You start to strip away. You start to let go. You let go of roles that no longer fit. You release goals that were never truly yours. You confront the masks you've been wearing just to be accepted. And this process, this shedding, is uncomfortable. It threatens the ego. It disrupts your sense of safety. Because for so long your identity has been built on these very illusions. Who are you if you're not your job? Who are you without constant productivity? Who are you when you stop performing? The mind doesn't like these questions. It prefers definitions. It craves boundaries. But the soul is different. It thrives in freedom. And freedom comes when you no longer need to be anything other than your truest self. Everything false must fall away for everything true to rise. It's like waking up from a long dream. At first it's disorienting, but slowly reality begins to feel more alive. You start feeling lighter. You begin speaking with more honesty. You laugh more freely. You say no without guilt. You show up not to impress but to express. This is growth. Not shiny, not loud, not Instagram-worthy, but deeply liberating. And paradoxically, as you shed more, life begins to expand. You attract better connections. You find deeper meaning in simpler things. You stop chasing outcomes and start enjoying the process. You stop proving and start being. You also become more resilient, because when your self-worth is no longer tied to achievements or appearances, failure doesn't define you. Rejection doesn't break you. You no longer fear loss, because you've already lost what was never truly yours, and survived. This shedding also reveals a new kind of
of power, not the power that dominates or performs, but the quiet power of presence, of knowing who you are without needing external confirmation, of standing rooted in truth when the world demands compromise. If you feel lost right now, confused or uncertain, it may not be a sign that you're failing. It may be a sign that you're finally waking up, that you're beginning to peel away the layers that were suffocating your authenticity. Trust that process. Honor it. Every illusion you release brings you closer to peace. Every false identity you drop brings you closer to freedom. Every time you say, "This is not me," you make space for the real you to emerge. This is the path of inward growth. Not glamorous, not linear, not comfortable, but profoundly sacred. Because in the end, the person you're becoming is the person you've always been. The life you want is already responding to your energy. This is not metaphor. It is not poetic exaggeration. It is the quiet, often unnoticed law that shapes your reality. People think life is something to chase, something far away that must be earned or won. But the truth is more mysterious and more empowering. Life is not reacting to your words, your plans, or even your struggles. It is responding to your state of being in this very moment. Most people imagine the future as a destination, a place they will one day reach if they work hard enough, push long enough, or suffer deeply enough. They dream of happiness, peace, love, abundance, always as something out there, waiting behind a veil of time and effort. But what they fail to realize is that life doesn't wait for you to arrive. It listens to who you are now. It mirrors the frequency you are broadcasting, consciously or unconsciously, into the world. Imagine a tuning fork. If you strike one and bring another close to it, the second one begins to vibrate, not because you touched it, but because of resonance. That's how energy works. That's how reality works. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions align with a certain frequency, life doesn't resist you. It begins to reflect that resonance. When you operate from fear, anxiety, or desperation, life echoes that back. You encounter more confusion, more resistance, more chaos. But when you operate from clarity, peace, self-trust, even if nothing externally has changed, doors begin to open in ways you could not have forced with effort alone. This is not magic. This is alignment. The problem is that most people are trying to change their external world without ever tending to their internal state. They want better outcomes without embodying better energy. They pray for love while resenting themselves. They wish for success while holding deep beliefs of inadequacy. They speak of abundance while fearing every loss. It's not enough to say you want something. Wanting is not energy. Embodiment is. So ask yourself, what energy are you living in right now? Not what mask are you wearing? Not what story are you telling others? But what is the quality of your inner atmosphere? Do you carry peace, or do you carry pressure? Do you walk with gratitude, or do you walk with resentment? Do you make decisions from fear, or from trust? These are the questions that shape your future far more than any plan or strategy. The life you want already exists in potential. It's not being kept from you, but it can only reveal itself when you become compatible with it. That means you must grow into the version of yourself that matches the life you dream of, not in appearance but in essence. You cannot attract a peaceful relationship if you live in emotional chaos. You cannot receive clarity if your mind is always running in circles. You cannot magnetize opportunities if your energy is scattered by doubt. This is not punishment, it's protection. Life will not give you what you're not ready to sustain, and readiness is not measured by how much you want something. It is measured by how much you have become that which you seek. You think you have to force things, convince people, hustle endlessly. But the moment your energy shifts, you'll notice that effort becomes lighter, more natural. You'll meet people who feel familiar. Ideas will arise with ease. Synchronicities will increase. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. They are reminders that you have stopped pushing life and started co-creating with it. But this shift requires patience. It requires stillness. It requires that you spend less time obsessing over results and more time observing your state of being. Because your outer world is always trailing your inner world. You don't attract peace and then become calm. You become calm and then attract peace. This is why inner work is not optional. It is foundational. Meditation, reflection, journaling, solitude, honest self-inquiry. These are not luxuries. They are the disciplines of those who understand that reality is energetic before it is material. If your life feels stuck, or if the things you want still feel far away, don't look further outside. Look deeper inside. Ask, what am I resonating with right now? What parts of me are still at war with the life I say I want? And how can I begin today to shift that? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not to act harder, but to be differently, to soften the noise, to align your thoughts and emotions, to trust that your inner state is the signal life responds to. You are not waiting for the future. The future is waiting for you. Begin now, not by asking for more, but by becoming more present, more aligned, more aware, because the life you want is not somewhere else. It is orbiting your current frequency, waiting for the moment your energy becomes the invitation. You can't build a strong future on a fragile self. This truth may be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. So many people focus on constructing elaborate futures, big dreams, perfect relationships, fulfilling careers, without realizing that the structure of their life is only as stable as the self it's built upon. If your sense of identity, worth, or clarity is weak, then anything you build on top of it is vulnerable. It might look impressive from the outside, but the moment pressure hits, the cracks begin to show. Imagine building a towering skyscraper on soft, shifting ground. No matter how beautiful or ambitious the architecture is, it won't stand the test of time unless the foundation is solid. The same principle applies to your inner life. Without emotional resilience, mental clarity, and self-trust, your external success becomes hollow and unsustainable. Yet society doesn't teach this. It pushes the illusion that success comes from action, more hustle, more output, more connections. Rarely does anyone tell you that success is first and foremost internal, that your mind, your beliefs, your emotions, your habits, all of them form the invisible groundwork upon which your life is built. And if that groundwork is fragile, if it's riddled with self-doubt, fear of failure, the need for validation, or unresolved pain, then no matter how hard you work, you'll feel unstable. You'll keep wondering why success doesn't feel fulfilling, why relationships feel draining, why peace feels temporary. It's because you're trying to live a strong life with a self that hasn't been strengthened. This isn't about blame.
Grow stronger when you begin to notice where you are fragile. That fragility doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But staying fragile while chasing a strong future, that is the recipe for burnout, breakdown, and bitterness. What does it mean to become strong from within? It doesn't mean building walls or pretending to be unshakable. It doesn't mean suppressing emotion or becoming invulnerable. Inner strength is quiet, grounded, and honest. It comes from doing the hard internal work, facing your wounds, understanding your patterns, sitting with discomfort, healing past pain. It means taking responsibility for your triggers. It means no longer blaming the world for your unhappiness. It means looking at your emotional reactions and asking, where is this coming from, and what does it reveal about me? Because every emotional outburst, every insecurity, every anxious spiral is a message, an invitation to examine the fault lines within your own foundation. Building a strong self also requires boundaries, not as a way to keep others out, but as a way to keep your own energy aligned. A strong self doesn't say yes to everything. It doesn't perform to please. It doesn't mold itself to fit into spaces that don't feel right. It says yes when it means yes. It says no with clarity, not guilt. It knows when to walk away, not because it's arrogant, but because it values peace over performance. And most importantly, a strong self knows its worth. This kind of strength can't be borrowed. It can't be learned from a book or faked with affirmations. It must be built, slowly, patiently, intentionally. You build it by keeping promises to yourself, by choosing integrity over approval, by doing what's right even when it's inconvenient. This inner strength becomes your stability. When life shakes, you don't collapse. When people leave, you don't lose yourself. When plans fall apart, you don't fall apart with them. You adapt, you stay centered, you move forward, not from panic, but from presence. That's the foundation your future needs, because the future will challenge you. It will test your patience, your vision, your values, and if you haven't done the inner work, you'll crumble under the weight of it. You'll compromise your values just to keep going. You'll accept less just to feel safe. You'll shrink when you should rise. But if your inner self is strong, you meet those challenges differently. You don't collapse under criticism. You don't chase every opportunity. You wait for the ones that align. You don't seek approval. You act from clarity. That's how lasting success is built. Stop focusing only on what you want to create out there. Start focusing on who you are becoming in here. Strengthen your mind. Heal your heart. Align your values. Trust yourself deeply. Because a strong self can hold a strong future. And when you do that, you stop chasing stability and start being it. You stop needing others to carry you, and you begin to carry your own life with grace. You stop living a life that looks good and start living one that feels whole. Peace and power are born in solitude. This is something many people resist because solitude is often mistaken for loneliness. In a world that glorifies busyness, constant connection, and social validation, being alone is seen as something to avoid. But solitude is not a punishment. It is a sacred space, an invitation to return to yourself, to hear the whispers beneath the noise, to reconnect with your truth, without the distortion of other people's expectations. The most profound growth does not happen in crowds, it happens in stillness, when you are finally alone, with no one to impress, no image to uphold, and no voice louder than your own. This is where the real work begins. It's where peace first emerges, not the kind of peace that's dependent on everything going right, but a peace that comes from understanding you are enough, even in silence, even when nothing external is validating you. Solitude is the space where you stop performing. You no longer need to fit in, to explain yourself, or to wear the masks you carry around in the world. In this quiet, you meet yourself not as a role, not as an idea, but as you truly are, raw, unfiltered, honest. And at first, this meeting may be uncomfortable. We spend so much of our lives running from ourselves, through distractions, conversations, ambitions, that being alone feels unnatural, but it is only unfamiliar because we've forgotten what it's like to be truly present with our own soul, and it's in that discomfort that transformation begins. You begin to notice your thoughts, you become aware of your emotional patterns, you sit with the wounds you've buried under productivity and entertainment, you begin to understand what you've been avoiding and why. This level of self-awareness is impossible when you are constantly surrounded by noise. Growth needs space, peace needs silence, power needs solitude, because power is not domination, it is not control over others. True power is the unshakable calm that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for, without needing applause or agreement. It is the confidence that arises when your identity is no longer dependent on how others see you. And this kind of power cannot be taught, it must be remembered in solitude. When you spend time alone, not to escape the world but to return to yourself, you begin to rebuild your inner landscape. You start setting boundaries not to protect your ego but to preserve your energy. You stop needing people to validate your worth because you've already seen your own value in the mirror of silence. You also begin to hear your intuition more clearly. In the stillness, your deeper knowing emerges, guiding you, warning you, encouraging you. This voice is often drowned out in everyday life, but it's always there, waiting for you to listen. And the more time you spend in solitude, the stronger that voice becomes. Eventually, it becomes louder than the doubt, louder than the fear, louder than the world. Solitude is also where you restore. Life pulls at you constantly. People demand your time, your energy, your attention. Without solitude, you burn out, you lose your center, you forget your purpose. But in solitude, you recharge, you breathe deeper, you remember what matters. You return to your life, not drained, but full. The more time you spend in healthy solitude, the better your relationships become. Why? Because you're no longer entering them from a place of need. You're not trying to complete yourself through someone else. You show up whole, and when two whole people meet, the connection is rich, real, and resilient. Solitude gives you clarity. It helps you see what is real and what is noise. It helps you distinguish between your voice and the voices of others. It helps you stop reacting and start responding. It removes the layers of confusion that come from living for everyone but yourself. And in that clarity, you begin to move differently. You stop chasing what doesn't align. You stop fighting battles that aren't yours. You stop giving energy to things that don't feed your soul. You become deliberate. You become grounded. You become powerful in a quiet, unshakable way. Don't fear solitude. Don't fill every quiet moment with noise. Learn to sit with yourself. Learn to enjoy your own company. Learn to explore your own mind. Because within that silence, peace is born. And within that peace, real power begins to rise. Power that doesn't need a stage. Power that doesn't need a title. Power that doesn't shout. Just the kind of power that allows you to walk into any situation and remain centered, because your foundation was built in solitude. Let the world keep spinning in noise and confusion. You return to stillness. That's where the real you is waiting. Life bends for those who align with their truth. This isn't just a spiritual idea, it's a lived experience. You can feel it when it happens. The struggle lessens, the noise fades, and things that once felt impossible begin to flow naturally. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. You are no longer betraying your own soul just to fit into places you don't belong. You are no longer molding your identity to please others, or chasing outcomes that don't reflect who you really are. When you live out of alignment with your truth, everything feels uphill. Even the victories feel hollow. You may achieve success, win praise, or build a reputation, but something inside remains unsettled. There's a subtle tension, an inner contradiction between who you are and who you are pretending to be. This tension leaks into your relationships, your decisions, your energy. You might appear composed on the surface, but inside you're constantly negotiating with your own integrity. Truth is not about opinions, it's about resonance. There is a certain feeling, unmistakable and calm, when something aligns with your core being. It could be a decision, a path, a relationship, or even a moment of silence. You feel it not in your mind, but in your body. It's a deep yes that requires no justification, and when you begin to honor that feeling, something shifts. Life doesn't bend to your ego, it doesn't reward performance, it responds to congruence, the internal harmony between what you believe, what you say, and how you act. When all three align, you enter a state of coherence, and in that state, you become magnetic, not through effort, but through authenticity. This is why people who seem calm and grounded often draw others in. It's not their words, it's their alignment. They're not trying to prove anything, they're not pretending. They've dropped the mask, and that creates a kind of space, a quiet invitation for others to do the same. Living in truth requires courage. It's not always convenient. It might mean walking away from things that once felt safe. It might mean disappointing people who benefit from your compliance. It might mean being misunderstood. But it is better to be misunderstood while aligned with your truth than to be accepted while living a lie. The cost of self-betrayal is far greater than the discomfort of being authentic, and the longer you live out of alignment, the more life begins to reflect that misalignment. You feel stuck, relationships become strained, work becomes draining, your inner world begins to echo with restlessness. That is life calling you back to yourself, not to punish you,
but to redirect you. Every difficulty becomes a signpost, pointing to something that no longer serves you. The moment you start choosing your truth, however small the step, life begins to respond. You feel lighter, more present, more powerful, not in a loud way, but in a steady, grounded way. Synchronicities appear. The right people come into your orbit. Paths open where there were once walls, not because life suddenly likes you more, but because you've stopped resisting the flow of your own energy. You see, your truth is your power source. It's your compass. When you live in alignment with it, you stop leaking energy. You stop doubting every step. You stop needing constant reassurance. You begin to trust your inner voice. You begin to trust yourself. And from that place, decisions become clearer. You know what to say yes to. You know what to walk away from. You know when to speak and when to stay silent. You move through life with a quiet confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped abandoning your truth to please the world. The irony is, the more you live in alignment, the less you need to control things. You stop clinging, you stop chasing, you stop forcing outcomes. You realize that what belongs to your path will feel right, not just in theory, but in energy. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect. Challenges will still arise, pain will still visit, but you'll meet them differently, with more grace, with less confusion, because even in the chaos, you'll know who you are. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to be real. You don't need to chase a grand destiny. You just need to return to your honest center. You don't need to be more. You just need to stop being less. So slow down, get quiet. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been silencing to make others comfortable? And then gently begin to listen again. Because the more aligned you become, the more life bends, not to your will, but to your truth. When you start living with intention, your life becomes an expression of your inner clarity. Most people wander through life reacting to circumstances, being pulled by desires they don't understand, and fears they never confront. But to live with intention is to no longer allow life to happen to you. It is to become the architect of your moments, to ask yourself daily, what am I truly here for, and does this action serve that purpose? Living with intention isn't about grand declarations, it's about subtle alignments. It's waking up and deciding not just what you want to do, but why you're doing it. When you live with intention, distractions lose their grip on you. You stop chasing what doesn't align with your values. You become less reactive and more centered. In a world designed to hijack your attention, the most radical act is to pause, breathe, and choose consciously. That means knowing when to say no, not just to people, but to ideas, to habits, to the versions of yourself that no longer fit. When you act from intention, your energy flows where it is truly needed. You stop leaking your time into meaningless pursuits and start channeling it into meaningful creation. There's a quiet power that comes from this shift. You no longer feel rushed by the ticking clock of society's expectations. Instead, you become patient, deliberate. You understand that your path may not be flashy, but it is deeply fulfilling because it is yours. Living with intention means you are no longer trying to be everything to everyone. You are willing to be misunderstood by others to stay true to yourself. You know that alignment is not about perfection, but about honesty, being real enough to admit when you've gone off course, and brave enough to correct it. This way of living demands awareness. It asks you to slow down in a world that rewards speed. It calls you to ask deeper questions. Is this what I really want, or what I've been conditioned to want? Does this serve my growth, or just my ego? Is this nourishing or simply numbing? When you begin to examine your choices through this lens, life stops feeling accidental. Even your struggles take on meaning, because you're not just surviving them, you're learning from them. And with every lesson, you refine your direction. Living intentionally also means accepting responsibility for your reality. You stop blaming others for your circumstances. You recognize that while you cannot control everything, you can control how you show up. And that changes everything. You take ownership of your habits, your relationships, your boundaries. You become protective of your peace, not out of fear but because you finally understand its value. You also begin to notice beauty in places you once overlooked. Because you are no longer rushing through life, you start to feel it more fully. A conversation becomes sacred. A moment of silence becomes profound. Every small choice becomes a step toward the life you actually want, not the one you were told to want. You see that intentional living is not restrictive, it is liberating. It frees you from the weight of expectation. It opens the door to authenticity. Intentional living is the quiet rebellion against distraction, against self-abandonment, against living on autopilot. It's the refusal to let your precious time be dictated by algorithms or other people's agendas. And yet it's not about control. It's about presence. It's about choosing what matters most, again and again even when it's hard. And here's the truth. This practice is ongoing. There will be days you forget your intention, days you fall into old patterns, but the difference is you will notice. You'll feel the dissonance in your spirit. And that awareness is your compass. It will always guide you back to your truth, back to your purpose, back to the life that was waiting for you all along. Live with intention, wake up with purpose, speak with clarity, act with awareness, and remember, the world doesn't need more people who are successful by society's standards. It needs more people who are fully alive, fully present, and deeply rooted in what truly matters. Let your life be a quiet revolution, A testament that alignment is more powerful than ambition, that depth is more satisfying than speed, and that intention is the gateway to everything real. People often mistake self-worth for performance or validation. We are taught to believe that the measure of our value is based on how much we accomplish, how admired we are, or how well we fit into others' expectations. But true worth isn't something you earn. It's something you recognize within. It is not determined by applause or approval. It is discovered through awareness. You are not valuable because others see it. You are valuable because you exist. The moment you tie your worth to achievements, you become a prisoner of outcomes. You run faster, climb higher, hustle harder, and yet you never feel enough. That's because the finish line always moves. The moment you get the praise, it fades. The moment you win, the pressure returns. But when you realize you were already enough before the chase began, you reclaim your peace. Many people suffer in silence because they do not feel worthy of love, success, or even happiness. They measure their worth through their flaws, their rejections, or their past mistakes. They wear shame like a second skin. But understand this: your imperfections do not define you. Your pain does not reduce you. You are not your past. You are the awareness that witnessed it all. And the fact that you are still here, still breathing, still hoping, means you have more strength than you give yourself credit for. Self-worth isn't found in fixing yourself. It's found in embracing yourself, scars and all. The truth is, nothing outside of you can give you lasting worth. No relationship, no award, no title will complete you. They may offer moments of joy, but if you don't feel whole within, those moments become fleeting. You'll be left chasing another high, another form of approval. That's the trap. That's the cycle. But when you realize that you are already whole, that nothing is missing, you stop chasing and start living. You stop performing and start being. You speak not to impress, but to express. You walk not to prove, but to feel. That is power. That is freedom. Many fear being alone because they associate solitude with emptiness. But solitude is not the absence of worth. It is the presence of self. It's in the quiet that you hear your truth. It's in the stillness that you meet the real you. And when you begin to enjoy your own company, not because you're avoiding others, but because you are at peace with who you are, that is when your self-worth becomes unshakable. You no longer settle for half-love or forced connections. You no longer tolerate disrespect or seek validation from those who can't even see themselves clearly. You choose you, not out of arrogance, but out of deep reverence for your own soul. Society may try to sell you worth through beauty standards, wealth, status, or success stories, but those are illusions. What truly makes a person valuable is their ability to be authentic, to be kind, to be present, to love, to forgive, to grow. Your worth is in your awareness, your heart, your energy, the way you make others feel, the way you show up even when it's hard, the way you heal. You are worthy, even when you're struggling. You are worthy, even when no one sees it. And that worth doesn't fade when life gets messy. It shines even brighter. To cultivate unshakable self-worth, you must challenge the voice in your head that says you're not enough. That voice is not you. It's a collection of past wounds, criticisms, and beliefs picked up over time. Begin by observing that voice with compassion, not judgment. Replace it with truth. Speak kindly to yourself, even if it feels unfamiliar. Affirm your worth, not because you've earned it, but because you finally see it. Create rituals that honor your being, whether that's journaling, meditating, moving your body, or simply resting. Learn to receive without guilt. Learn to say no without fear. Learn to exist without apology. You will meet people who try to diminish you, through criticism, control, or comparison. That's not a reflection of your worth, but don't let their projection become your identity. Stay rooted in your truth. When you know your worth, you don't argue for it. You don't beg for it. You don't prove it. You embody it. You show it through your boundaries, your choices, your energy. And those who truly see you will never ask you to shrink. Your self-worth is the foundation of every relationship, every decision, every dream. Without it, you build on shaky ground. With it, you become unshakable. So return to yourself, not the version others expect, but the version that feels most real. Peel off the layers of performance, drop the mask, release the pressure, and remember, you are enough, not because you did something, but because you are something. A unique, irreplaceable, evolving expression of life. And that alone makes you more than worthy. The essence of this speech revolves around awakening the power within, guiding us through the deep inner journey of self-realization and success. At its core, the message is simple but profound. Greatness is not something to be achieved outwardly, but something to be uncovered inwardly. It is about understanding the truth of who you are, breaking the illusions of limitation, and choosing to rise above fear, doubt, and external noise. The wisdom shared invites you to stop chasing success as a goal, and instead become success as a state of being. It emphasizes mastering your inner world, your thoughts, your habits, your emotions, because that is where true transformation begins. The path to becoming the best version of yourself is not through comparison or perfection, but through self-honesty, discipline, and a willingness to evolve. Every challenge, every failure, every moment of discomfort becomes your teacher if you are willing to listen. This speech asks you to take responsibility for your life, not just in words but in action. You are reminded that you are not a victim of your circumstances, but a creator of your reality. When you embrace your uniqueness, when you align your actions with your purpose, and when you commit to daily growth rather than waiting for the perfect moment, life begins to respond in powerful ways. The universe doesn't reward those who simply wish, it supports those who are willing to act in alignment with who they truly are. The final takeaway is not just motivational but transformational. Stop trying to be someone else, and instead learn to uncover the greatness already within you. You don't need to be loud to make an impact. You don't need validation to be valuable. True success comes when you become quiet, focused, and rooted in purpose. It's a call to mastery over your mind, your habits, your time, and most importantly, your sense of identity. This is not just a speech, it's a mirror that reflects your potential, your power, and your purpose. The only question is, are you ready to see it?
Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed how a single negative thought can grow roots in your mind, twisting itself into every quiet moment, haunting your peace like an echo you can't silence? It's strange, isn't it, that the loudest voices in our head are often the ones that lie to us most. If you've ever wondered why your own mind feels like your greatest enemy, then stay here, because what you're about to hear will change the way you live with your thoughts forever. Most people spend their entire lives trying to push away what they don't want to feel. Anger, sadness, shame. They think if they can just fight harder, control better, resist longer, the storm will pass. But have you ever tried to stop a storm with your bare hands? Thoughts are like the weather. They come and they go, and the harder you stand against the wind, the more it exhausts you. Look closer. A thought is just a ripple, a whisper in the mind. It is not who you are. The problem is not the thought itself, but the grip you tighten around it. The fear that it might mean something terrible about you. The belief that because you think it, you must obey it. But the secret is this: you are not your thoughts. You are the space in which thoughts arise, the silent witness. So instead of struggling, become the watcher. Sit still, and see how each thought floats in like a leaf on a stream. Watch it pass. Do not grasp. Do not grasp. Do not push. Simply notice. When you stop feeding your negative thoughts with attention and fear, they lose their teeth. They can bark, but they can't bite. Many ask, but what if my mind won't be quiet? Then don't force it. Forcing silence is noise itself. Instead, rest in the gaps between the noise. Listen to the hum of existence beneath the mental chatter, the breath, the beating heart, the distant song of life beyond your worries. And here's something you may not expect. Your thoughts are not enemies. They are messengers. When you greet them with curiosity instead of judgment, they reveal what is restless inside you, what longs to be seen and healed. A negative thought says more about your wounds than your worth. The mind will never be perfectly still, and it doesn't have to be. Peace is not the absence of thought, but the freedom to let thoughts pass like clouds drifting across a vast blue sky. The sky is never harmed by the storm. So too, your awareness is untouched by passing worries. If you can remember this, that you are the sky, not the weather, then no thought, however dark or heavy, can cage you. This is freedom, not to conquer every thought, but to rest in the space where thoughts come and go while you remain. The next time a negative thought knocks on your mind's door, pause, smile perhaps, let it come in, offer it a seat, watch how it loses its urgency when you no longer run from it. The thought is fleeting, the watcher is eternal, and you, my friend, are the watcher. Stay with this until you see for yourself. The only power a thought has is the power you give it. The moment you stop fighting, you stop feeding the illusion. Then, and only then, will your mind become your companion instead of your cage. And that is how you deal with your negative thoughts, not by force but by freedom. Not by resistance, but by awareness. Remember this each time your mind trembles. You are not the thought, you are the sky. To truly deal with your negative thoughts, you must first come to see the very nature of thought itself. Most people never pause long enough to examine what a thought really is. They assume it's some solid truth, some command that must be obeyed, or a fact that must be fought. But what if you saw your thoughts as nothing more than ripples on a pond, passing breezes that stir the surface, but never touch the depths? Sit with this for a moment. Thoughts arise and disappear on their own. Did you really choose your last thought? Did you reach into a shelf in your mind and pick out that worry, that regret, that memory from years ago that suddenly intruded while you were drinking your coffee? No, thoughts appear like birds landing on a tree branch, and just like birds they take flight again. We treat thoughts as permanent. We clutch them to our chest, dissect them, fear them, argue with them. We believe every whisper of the mind is a verdict about who we are and what our future holds. But the mind is not a wise judge, it's a storyteller.
endlessly spinning tales from scraps of memory, old wounds and borrowed voices. When you recognize this, a space opens. You no longer see every negative thought as an emergency needing immediate rescue or escape. Imagine standing by a river. Each thought is a leaf drifting past. Most people jump in after every leaf, flailing in the current, desperate to grab hold of the one leaf they think they must possess or destroy. They tire themselves out swimming after shadows. But the river doesn't care. It keeps flowing. And if you simply stand on the bank, you see the truth. The leaf was never yours to catch or keep. It was only passing through. To recognize the nature of thought is to see this. Thoughts have no substance on their own. They come alive only when you feed them with belief, when you pour your energy and attention into them. A negative thought says, "You're not good enough." Alone those are just sounds, words in the mind. But when you believe them, when you wrap your sense of self around them, they grow roots. They bloom into anxiety, self-loathing, despair. This is not to say you must wage war against every negative thought. In fact, that is the trap. The more you resist, the more you feed them. Trying to banish every unwanted thought is like yelling at a cloud to leave the sky. Better to simply see the cloud for what it is, vapor, shifting shapes that never stay. When you recognize the nature of thought, you step back. You become the one who notices, not the one who fights. You may hear the mind whispering its old lines. You'll fail. They don't care about you. You'll never change. But now you see them as echoes, not prophecies. You nod. You let them pass. They have no hook if you don't bite. This simple recognition changes everything. It frees you from the illusion that your thoughts are you. They are visitors, some helpful, some noisy, some nonsense. You don't have to open the door to every knock. You don't have to invite every guest to stay the night. And here's a beautiful irony. When you stop clinging to your thoughts, you begin to hear something deeper than thought, the quiet, calm space beneath the chatter. You notice the steady rhythm of your breath, the warmth in your chest, the hum of life itself. The mind's noise loses its grip, not because it has vanished, but because you are no longer entangled in its every word. Begin here. Recognize what a thought really is. Watch it come. Watch it go. Feel how it cannot hold you unless you hold it first. With time, you'll see that the mind's storms pass more quickly when you don't build a house beneath the rain clouds. You'll discover that behind every negative thought is a vast, unbothered sky, your true self, wide and open, waiting patiently for you to remember who you are. We are taught from a young age to fight our battles head on, to stand our ground, to conquer our demons, to silence the noise in our minds through force of will. But when it comes to your thoughts, especially the negative ones, this approach often backfires. The more you wrestle with your own mind, the stronger it becomes, not because your thoughts gain new power, but because your struggle feeds them. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a dark room. In the corner of that room is a shadow. It shifts and flickers and looks terrifying in its shape. You, wanting peace, wanting light, begin to fight it. You yell at it, you push at the air, you swing your fists wildly, trying to make it disappear. But the shadow remains because your struggle does nothing to the shadow itself. The shadow is only there because something is blocking the light. Your effort only exhausts you. It never touches the cause. This is how it is with negative thoughts. You think you can fight them into silence, argue with them, shout them down, push them away, but your resistance is like fuel. When you argue with a thought like "I'm not good enough," you are in a strange way saying it matters, that it's a worthy opponent, that it deserves your energy, and so the thought lingers, feeding on your attention. There is a simple truth many never see. You cannot fight your way to peace. You cannot argue your way out of the mind's maze. The more you resist, the tighter the walls close in. If you really wish to break free, you must stop wrestling with shadows. What does this mean in practice? It means seeing a thought for what it is, a flicker, an echo, and not engaging in combat with it. Let it speak. Let it drift. You do not have to stand there, sword in hand, defending your worth against a phantom. Take the example of worry. Suppose you wake in the middle of the night, and your mind conjures a fear. What if I fail? What if they leave me? What if I lose everything? Instinctively you tense up. You replay it, argue with it, run mental calculations to find certainty. You think you're solving it, but you're really building a nest for it to roost. The worry feeds on your desperate search for answers. When the thought appears, notice it without reaction. Don't push it away. That gives it something to push back against. Don't cling to it. That gives it roots. Simply let it be. Ah, there is worry, you say to yourself. There is fear. Like a passing train, you hear it roar by, but you don't have to jump on. This non-resistance doesn't mean you're passive or helpless. It means you trust that your mind, left alone, will settle like muddy water left undisturbed. The struggle is what keeps it cloudy. The silence is what lets it clear. Look at nature. The river does not fight the rocks in its path. It flows around them. The tree does not struggle against the wind. It bends, it yields, it remains. The same is true for your mind. Your thoughts are not wild animals to be wrestled into submission. They are passing weather. They cannot harm the sky. When you stop wrestling, something shifts. You discover that what you thought was an enemy is just a ghost. It cannot bind you unless you bind yourself to it. You see the negative thought arise. You watch it dissolve. You become less interested in its drama. You remember you are the watcher, not the warrior. You save your energy for living, not fighting phantoms. You walk lighter. You sleep deeper. You trust more in life's unfolding.
The mind still speaks, but it does not roar. The shadows may flicker, but they no longer terrify, because you know now that fighting shadows only makes them darker. And when you stop wrestling, the light shines through. The shadows flee on their own. Most people spend their days tangled in an endless debate with their own minds, believing they must control every thought, solve every problem before it even exists, and win every invisible argument that springs up in the silence of their rooms. They stand ready like warriors, armed with strategies to defeat the next wave of negativity. But this constant battle leaves them drained, anxious, and no closer to peace. The real freedom, however, does not lie in being the warrior. It lies in becoming the watcher. If you can see this shift, you'll begin to understand why the mind torments you, because you keep stepping onto its stage, mistaking its drama for reality. You put on the costume, you play the role, you get lost in the plot, but you were never meant to be the actor. You were always the audience. When you become the watcher, you step back, you sit in the seat of your own awareness, and you notice, here is a thought about my failures, here is a worry about tomorrow, here is regret for something long past. You do not stand up, run backstage, and try to rewrite the script line by line. You watch the play, you watch it unfold, and you see that it is just that, a play. This simple radical shift breaks the chain that binds you to every thought. You no longer feel forced to react. You no longer panic when a negative idea surfaces, because you see it for what it is, a cloud in a sky that cannot be stained. You begin to feel a spaciousness inside you, a soft space where thoughts can appear and disappear without shaking the foundation of who you are. Think of it this way. When you were young, you may have laid in the grass and watched the clouds drift by. You did not panic at every dark cloud, thinking it would stay forever. You knew it would pass. The sky was always bigger than the cloud. Now imagine your thoughts are those clouds. Most people run after every one, clutching them, trying to reshape them, worrying about storms that never come. But the watcher lies on the grass, looks up and smiles. There is a dark cloud, but the sky remains untouched. You shift from being the thought to being the awareness that notices the thought. The moment you see this, you find your first taste of freedom. The thought may still whisper, "You'll never be enough, you're going to fail, they don't really care about you." But now, instead of gripping you like a chain, it floats by like a paper boat on a river. It cannot command you to react. It cannot force you to bow down. Becoming the watcher does not mean you become cold or distant. It means you become intimate with life as it really is. You stop living inside your stories, and you start living inside the present. The breath, the sound of rain, the warmth of a cup of tea in your hand. These small moments reveal what's true when the mind's noise softens. The beauty of the watcher is that it needs no effort. It has always been there. You are not becoming something new. You are remembering what you already are. The thoughts come and go, but the one who sees them remains. Thoughts shift, emotions shift, but the seeing never changes. That is your home. When people first hear this, they may ask, "But what do I do when a really painful thought arises? Shouldn't I do something?" Yes, but not what you think. Don't fight it. Don't argue. Don't grab it and try to push it away. Just watch. Feel how it moves through your body, the tight chest, the knot in the throat. Notice how it peaks and fades, like a wave rising and falling back into the ocean. Each time you watch without reacting, the mind's grip loosens. You become less afraid of your own darkness, because you see it has no claws when you do not wrestle with it. You understand that you were never the storm, you were always the sky. Sit back, rest in your own presence. When the mind shouts, listen as you would listen to the wind in the trees, an old song, sometimes fierce, sometimes soft, always passing. Become the watcher, and you will find a peace that no thought can touch, because no matter how loud the mind gets, the watcher remains silent, open and free. There is a persistent illusion that traps so many souls in quiet suffering, the illusion that you can control the mind like a machine, tweaking this lever or that gear, until at last every thought is pure, every feeling pleasant, every corner swept free of doubt and darkness. It's a comforting fantasy, the idea that if you just try harder, think harder, plan more precisely, you can master the wilderness inside your own head. But sit with your experience for just a moment, and you will see how false this hope is. Have you ever truly controlled what pops into your mind? Did you ever schedule a negative memory to arrive on a rainy Tuesday? Did you invite worry in at midnight, or ask fear to knock on your door just when you're about to speak, or love, or risk something important? Of course not. Thoughts appear unbidden. They vanish on their own. Some linger, some flicker for a moment, but none arrive because you decided to conjure them. Yet the mind believes it can control this uncontrollable dance. So you find yourself tangled in endless strategies. I must think positively. I must not think of failure. I must push away this doubt, hide that fear. But who is the I that controls the thought?
Look closely, and you will find that this controller is just another thought too, another voice in the same swirling current, claiming to command the river when it is only drifting in it. Much of your exhaustion comes from this illusion, this sense that peace is just around the corner if you can only tighten your grip on your mind. But the paradox is clear: the tighter you hold, the more restless you become. The more rules you impose on your thoughts, the more rebellious they grow. Like trying to hold water in a clenched fist, the harder you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers. What happens if you stop believing in this fragile illusion of control? What happens if you loosen your grip, not out of defeat but out of wisdom? You discover something shocking at first: that peace does not come from a mind that never stirs, but from a heart that is undisturbed by the stirring. When you see that your thoughts will come and go whether you fight them or not, you can finally rest. Rest is not passive, it is the deepest trust that you do not need to stand guard over every passing idea. You do not need to interrogate every shadow that flits across your awareness. You can let the mind be as it is, like a vast field full of birds that land and fly away. The field remains. If you observe deeply, you will see that the moments when you feel most free are not the moments when you have won control of your thoughts, but the moments when you forget to monitor them altogether. When you are walking in the forest, absorbed by the smell of the trees, or sitting by the sea, feeling the sun on your face, where is the controller then? It is gone. In that natural openness, thoughts may still drift by, but you are not their prisoner. They come and go like the wind in the grass. The true lesson is this: freedom is not control, freedom is surrendering the illusion of control. When you stop believing the mind must be perfectly managed, you give yourself permission to be fully alive. The mind can chatter and spin its stories, but you no longer chase its every tale. You watch, you listen, you return to the simplicity of this moment, the breath, the pulse, the sound of your own existence humming beneath the noise. If you wish for a calm mind, stop trying to force calmness. The mind calms itself when it is not pressed into shape by fear and force. Like muddy water settling when left alone, your awareness becomes clear when you no longer stir it with frantic effort. To understand this is to understand your own power, not the power to bend every thought to your will, but the power to stand unshaken as thoughts rise and fall. This is the power of true freedom, to know you are not the puppeteer, nor the puppet, but the space in which the show unfolds. Once you see the illusion of control for what it is, a myth that only deepens your struggle, you can begin to let go, and in that letting go, you will find the calm you were seeking all along. Not because the mind is finally silent, but because its noise no longer holds you captive. You rest, you watch, and you remain untouched.
There is a hidden doorway within you that many search for, but few notice. The doorway of inner silence. People imagine silence as the absence of noise, a blank space where nothing happens. But true silence is not an emptiness. It is a fullness so complete that it can hold all sound, all thought, all feeling without being disturbed. It is the clear sky behind the ever-shifting weather of your mind. Most people spend their entire lives inside the noise, not just the noise of the outer world, but the far more relentless noise of their own thoughts. A mind that never stops whispering, "What if? Why did I? What should I?" This constant commentary is like a static hum that follows you everywhere, in bed at night, at your desk during the day, behind your eyes even as you smile at someone you love. You have grown so used to this hum that you forget it is not you. You mistake it for the whole of who you are. But listen more deeply. Beyond the hum there is a space, a gap, a soft, quiet opening that exists between thoughts. Sometimes you glimpse it by accident, a moment of awe when you see the sun break through the clouds, the hush that fills you when you watch the sea stretch out to the horizon, the simple stillness when you sit alone and notice your own breathing. In these rare moments the mind pauses, the thoughts loosen their grip, and you taste something profound, a silence that is alive. This silence is not dead or dull. It is not boredom or numbness. It is not the mind falling asleep. It is the mind fully awake but at rest, no longer trying to solve, to judge, to control. In this inner silence you come home to yourself, the self that existed before every opinion and every worry. To find this silence you do not need to run away to a distant mountain or sit cross-legged in a cave for 10 years. It is closer than your breath. It is the space that appears when you stop believing every thought that crosses your mind. It is the gentle pause when you listen without immediately reacting. When you notice a worry but do not follow it down its endless tunnel. Thoughts are like ripples on a pond. When the wind of your attention stops stirring the surface, the water becomes clear. You do not have to fight the ripples into stillness, you simply stop splashing. In the same way, you do not force your mind to be silent. You allow it to settle by not grasping at every passing thought. You become the witness, and the witness is always silent. In this silence, something beautiful happens. You begin to see thoughts for what they are, echoes, suggestions, bits of old memory replaying like a broken record. You no longer cling to the negative ones, nor chase the pleasant ones. They drift by, harmless and weightless. The silence holds them all, but is defined by none of them. And in this space something deeper awakens, a natural clarity. Clarity is not the mind's frantic search for answers, it is the mind's resting in not needing answers for everything at once. You see more clearly because you are not blinded by the noise of your own inner arguments. You hear the soft, truthful voice that was drowned out by all the chatter. When you touch this silence often, it changes you. You become less reactive, less quick to anger or despair. Problems may still arise, but they do not consume you. You handle life's storms from the calm center within. Like a mountain unmoved by passing clouds, you remain steady as thoughts come and go. Some believe silence is the goal of meditation alone, something reserved for monks and mystics, but it is not so. Silence is the natural birthright of every human being. It does not require special rituals or perfect conditions. It only asks that you stop running from yourself. When your thoughts grow heavy and your mind feels like a crowded room, remember this: the silence is already there, waiting patiently behind the noise. Return to it. Sit quietly, breathe, and notice the spaces between your thoughts. Rest there even for a moment. The more you trust this silence, the more you realize it is not something you create, it is what you are. Thoughts are visitors, silence is the home they visit. And when you live from that home, you carry a calm that no storm of the mind can sweep away. So listen, beneath every worry, every complaint, every restless question, there it is. That quiet place where nothing is missing, where nothing needs to be fixed. The deeper you dwell in this silence, the clearer your life becomes. And the clearer your life becomes, the lighter your thoughts will feel. All because you remembered what the mind wants you to forget. That silence is not the absence of life, it is its purest presence. So much suffering blooms not from the presence of negative thoughts alone, but from the harshness with which we meet them. The mind, conditioned by years of judgment and resistance, turns on itself like a scolding parent. A dark thought appears: I'm a failure, I'm unlovable, I will never get this right, and immediately another voice snaps back: how could you think that? Why are you so weak? Why can't you just be positive like everyone else? The judgment piles on top of the original thought, creating layer upon layer of shame, frustration, and guilt. But what happens if you shift from judgment to curiosity? What if instead of slamming the door on your negative thoughts or trying to suffocate them with forced positivity, you open the door and greet them like unexpected guests? You may be surprised to find that these guests have come not to ruin your peace, but to show you where your attention is needed most. When you look at your thoughts with curiosity, you become like a compassionate scientist observing the patterns of your own mind. You do not label them as good or bad, worthy or unworthy. You simply notice: interesting, there's that old fear again. Where did you come from? What are you trying to protect me from? This simple shift from this thought is bad to this thought is here for a reason changes everything. Curiosity softens you. Judgment hardens you. One closes doors, the other opens windows. When you judge your thoughts, you are at war with yourself, part of you attacking another part of you. But when you meet your thoughts with curiosity, you become whole again. You see that every dark idea, every self-critical whisper, is not the enemy, but a messenger carrying news from the hidden places within you. Perhaps that old thought, I'm not good enough, is not here to torture you, but to remind you of a wound you never tended to. Perhaps it echoes something you learned long ago, a harsh word from a parent, a disappointment that carved itself into your sense of worth. When you judge it, you bury it deeper. But when you meet it with gentle attention, you begin to heal it. You say, I see you, I hear you, I am not afraid to feel you. And like a child who finally feels seen, the thought loses its urgency to scream for your attention. This approach does not mean you must believe every thought or obey every whisper. It means you learn to hold them lightly, to sit with them for a moment, to ask, what is this thought trying to protect me from? What am I truly afraid of beneath this story? Often the thought dissolves the moment you see its roots. It cannot survive in the clear light of your awareness. When you transform judgment into curiosity, you also transform your relationship with yourself. Instead of trying to be perfect, perfectly calm, perfectly positive, perfectly unbothered, you become real. You become alive to your inner world, not as a battlefield but as a garden. In a garden, weeds do not make the flowers any less beautiful. They simply show you where there is work to be done. Curiosity is gentle. It asks questions without demanding answers. It sits patiently beside discomfort, letting it unfold at its own pace. It does not rush healing or force clarity. It knows that understanding comes naturally when space is given. And here is something most people overlook. Curiosity naturally makes space for compassion. When you judge yourself, you tighten and close off. But when you are curious, you soften. You become more patient with yourself. You see that the mind is not a villain to defeat, but a frightened child to comfort. Thoughts lose their bite when you stop biting back. The next time a negative thought rises like a storm cloud, pause. Instead of pushing it away or arguing with it, invite it closer. Study its shape. Ask it where it came from. Ask it what it needs. And then watch. More often than not, you will see it begin to fade on its own. Its message delivered. Its hold released. This is not about having only good thoughts. It is about making peace with all your thoughts. The bright and the dark. The kind and the cruel.
You are not here to conquer your mind, but to understand it, to befriend it, to see it clearly for what it is, a wild, ever-changing landscape that becomes far less frightening when you wander through it with open eyes and an open heart. Meet your thoughts with curiosity, and you will find that what once felt like a prison of the mind becomes a path leading you deeper into understanding, healing, and the gentle freedom of simply being human. You have been taught to believe that your thoughts define you, that every doubt, every cruel idea, every fearful whisper inside your head is a reflection of who you really are at your core. This belief quietly shapes your days and nights. You cling to thoughts that feel good, you run from those that feel dark, you panic when the mind drifts into places you wish it wouldn't go. But there is a truth waiting for you just beyond this old conditioning. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. Look at this closely and you'll see how freeing it is. A thought arises, I am not enough. Most people do not see this as a mere thought. They feel it as a truth. They accept it like a verdict handed down from some inner judge. And then, without realizing it, they live from that thought. They shrink. They hold back. They stop reaching for what calls to them, all because they mistook a passing cloud for the endless sky. But imagine instead that you sit still for a moment and truly observe. Where does that thought come from? Can you find its source? Did you consciously choose to think I am not enough? Or did it appear uninvited like a gust of wind through an open window? And when you look at it, can you touch it, hold it, see where it lives in the body? A thought has no weight, it has no shape. It appears, it lingers for a heartbeat or an hour, and then it vanishes. But you, the one aware of the thought, you remain. You were there before it appeared, and you are still here after it fades. The thought is fleeting, you are not. Real freedom begins the moment you recognize this gap between you and what your mind produces. Thoughts come and go, regrets, dreams, worries, plans, judgments. But the silent awareness that sees them all is steady. Thoughts are like birds landing on a branch. The branch does not become the bird. The branch simply holds it for a moment and lets it fly away. When you remember that you are not your thoughts, you stop fighting them. You stop clinging to them too. The mind can chatter, can grumble, can praise or condemn, but you do not have to believe everything it says. You are under no obligation to obey every command that appears in your head. You can watch it all like clouds drifting across a vast sky, knowing the sky is never harmed by the passing weather, and this knowing changes the shape of your days. When the mind says, you're failing, you notice, there's that voice again, but you do not bow to it. When it says, you should be scared, you listen, but you do not run. When it says, you are not worthy, you let it say what it must, like a radio playing softly in another room. You don't have to switch it off, nor do you have to turn up the volume. You simply hear it, and you remain. There is great compassion in this recognition too, because when you see that thoughts are not you, you see that you don't have to take them so personally. You don't have to blame yourself for what the mind does. The mind learned its patterns long ago, from parents, from teachers, from the bruises of growing up in an imperfect world. It absorbed fears and judgments that were never truly yours. To carry them forever as your identity is to carry someone else's pain on your back. When you know you are not your thoughts, you open the door to forgiveness. Forgiveness for yourself. Forgiveness for the mind's restless habit of telling old stories. You do not fix the mind by force. You heal it by watching it gently, like sitting beside a frightened animal until it learns there is no threat here. No need to run. No need to bark. When the next negative thought arises, and it will because this is the nature of the mind, pause. Take a breath. Instead of leaping into battle or retreat, just see it. Watch it float by. Remind yourself, this is not me. This is something happening within me. Again and again you come home to this silent watcher, this vast clear sky of your being. Thoughts will come. Thoughts will go, but you, the open space that notices, you remain. This is the deepest peace, knowing that no thought can define you, no idea can confine you, and no passing storm can ever tear apart the boundless sky you truly are. And so all of this leads you back to the simplest, most overlooked truth. You are not here to conquer your thoughts, nor to build perfect walls around your mind to keep every storm away. You are here to remember what you have always been, the open sky that holds every cloud, the deep ocean that is undisturbed by every passing wave. Negative thoughts will come, because the mind was never meant to be silent forever. It was meant to dream, to wonder, to question, to worry. It spins stories because that is its nature. But you are not those stories. You are the space in which they appear and disappear. You are the listener, not the noise. When you stop wrestling with shadows, when you stop mistaking every passing thought for a verdict on who you are, you return to something quieter, deeper, more true. You begin to see that no thought can limit you, unless you decide to wear it like a mask. The fear, the doubt, the old wounds, they lose their grip when you greet them with curiosity instead of judgment, when you sit beside them as a friend rather than an enemy, and through it all you discover the hidden treasure. Peace is not the absence of thought but the presence of awareness. The mind does what the mind does. Like the weather, it changes 1,000 times a day. But the one who sees it, the one who watches calmly, that one remains untouched, steady, quietly free. The next time the mind whispers its familiar worries, when it tells you that you are not enough, that you must fix everything, that you must fight or flee. Pause. Take a breath. Remember, this is just a ripple on the surface. Beneath it is a depth that no thought can touch. Rest there. Return there as often as you can. Let the thoughts come. Let them go. And remember that you are not their prisoner, but the witness who holds them all, lightly, like clouds drifting across a boundless sky. In that simple remembrance, you find a freedom that was never truly lost, only waiting patiently for you to see it again.